Hello friends and welcome to my build guide for the Drovier Druid. This is the build that I use to beat the game on unfair with full party XP sharing, without any mods, without any conventional cheeses, so to speak. I didn't skip any content besides Nano Quest because this one is just torture. Even with guides for the puzzles, it took me like 2 days to do it on my other playthrough, so I just didn't want to go through that. But the reason I wanted to make this video is because while this might look like a very hard and arduous journey, because it was, at the same time, it's very interesting because you see, I'm 35 years old and I've played a lot of CRPGs. I started playing them at 16, okay? And in Pathfinder specifically, I have about 500 hours in Kingmaker and 1,500 hours in Wrath of the Righteous. And I still don't know everything about this game. That's how huge it is. However, I really like the Druid playthrough, just in general, in these types of games. But in Pathfinder specifically, the Druid is very peculiar. It's very different. It feels kind of like a copy-paste of the Cleric, but a little bit different. And if you guys are coming from Baldur's Gate 3, the Druid in 5th edition is amazing. It's OP, in a way. But the wild-shaped Druid in Wrath of the Righteous is very bad because shapeshifting, I'm gonna be blunt, shapeshifting sucks. Unless you're a shifter, shifters can make it work. But everything else that shapeshifts in the game runs into numerous problems. I'm gonna need at least 30 minutes to fully explain to you why it sucks. Okay, but for the sake of, this video not being 5 hours, I'm just going to go with the choice of why the Drovier Druid. Okay, so the important thing here is once you pick the chat difficulty, you know, most of the important decisions are actually in character creation. The build itself is somewhat simple, but kind of difficult to use. So I would recommend this build for players who can easily beat the game on core, but for some reason you find yourself stuck on unfair. Maybe you get stuck in Canabras, maybe you get stuck in the Vescavors, maybe you get stuck somewhere else, and maybe you're frustrated and you want to try something else. You can give it a shot. So custom character, let's go. You will of course download Nexus portraits because they are very cool. Pick one. So obviously we want to go Druid. This is 20 levels of Druid. None of these matter. Rampager, Manpager. Unfair is a very forbidding difficulty and you really have to pick a lane. So we go with the best one, which is this one. Okay. The race doesn't matter at all. Pick anything you like. I went with human just because of the extra feet, but it doesn't help you that much. So you can do whatever. Doesn't matter. So this thing here, the background selection, this is actually very important. We want to go with, where was it? I think it was Acolyte. Yeah, because we want to use our wisdom instead of charisma for persuasion checks. This means that now our charisma is useless. Unless you want to use divine grace. But for now, let's go here. You go 19 points on an odd number for wisdom, and then you care about dexterity. This is for initiative rolls. Normally, I recommend positive strength, just for a little bit of extra weight, but you're gonna have a pet, so it doesn't matter. Get some constitution, whatever. For skills, we get a lot of bonuses on nature. So we get this one, we get this one, and we get persuasion. Okay. Now feats. This is one of the advantages of this build. This is probably the only build in the game that needs like 3 feats. Okay. The most important one that you need is improved initiative. I recommend this feat on every single character in the game, on every single build. So the other feat that you're gonna need is Dispel Focus. Actually, let me see if I can search on them here. You need Dispel Focus and Greater Dispel Focus with improved initiative. These 3 feats are all you need. Yes, you can pick Metamagic Heighten for spellbook versatility. You can pick Metamagic Extend for more convenience on longer buffs. Something like Dispel Synergy, maybe even Dispel Focus. But we're gonna be Angel, and honestly, I made a mistake on my playthrough. I doubled down too much synergy on Dispel, and it was pointless. Because turns out that to dispel a Reel of Orlesh on Unfair, you need about 33 cast level check. You have an item that gives you a guaranteed 20 roll. So there was no reason to go insane like me with like plus 50 something on Dispel. But you basically get the Dispel synergies and you're gonna be fine. This Destructive Dispel very rarely works on Unfair. It doesn't matter. Just pick Improved Initiative. Alright, so for pets, now you can watch other people's guides on pets. I would recommend watching CRPG Bro, he has very extensive guides on pets. But I recommend the Leopard, because we want a... I don't want to say the word tank, but you want a front line. There is a difference. Here you can pick anything that is of good alignment. So this can work. We can only be neutral good because we have to be good to be Angel and we have to be neutral to be a Druid. This doesn't matter.
A trivial task. I did it! Let's this. The road calls me. I'll take the bait.
Okay.
All I see.
And that's your build.
Darkness.
So about the pet, I recommend the archetype Daredevil. The reason being is this thing called Artful, no, I'm sorry, where was it? Yeah, Devil May Care at level 9. This is extremely strong. So immunity to flank status is quite unique. It's very difficult to obtain. And when you are getting flanked, normally it's just +2 to the attack rating. But in the case of enemies like Babao, for example, they have outflank, so they get +4. But more importantly, when you're flanked, you are you can get sneak attacked. And on Unfair, all the damage is doubled. It's not just auto attack damage. It's also ability damage, ability drain. It's also spell damage, but it's also precision damage. So critical hits and sneak attacks are also doubled. And even passive damage like the spores from the rocks is doubled. Everything is doubled. And getting hit by a sneak attack is a death sentence, basically. So this thing is just simply the best. You lose Devotion, which, let's be honest, pets are never strong with will saves anyway. You lose multi-attack, but that doesn't really matter. We have other options for damage. Now, depending on how many pets you have in your party, you might want to forego this. Otherwise, you always want to have as much perception as you want on as many different characters as you have. But because I'm gonna be having, I think, 2 other pets, I'm gonna have enough perception, so I'm gonna capitalize on stealth and mobility for this one. And you always level these two, right? So the reason stealth is good is because you will be able to scout uh, enemies without getting. It sounds counterintuitive because the leopard is the tank. Why would the tank be in stealth? Well, this has multiple applications. You can, for example, stealth the leopard and just go around, investigate all the enemies, start from the back line, aggro the back line, run around, aggro the front line, aggro everything, and then funnel them in a specific way and burst them with AoE and stuff like that. Like, you can do a lot of cool things. It's good to have. As far as feats go, again, I'm not gonna go into too much detail. Just pick anything that is synergetic with tankiness, but don't forget to improve initiative. The rest is gonna be stuff like dodge, toughness. Enemies hit for a bazillion damage, so it doesn't really matter, but you can get it from the beginning. Lightning reflexes is good, capitalizing on reflex saves, because we also get evasion, so having high reflex makes us very, very cool. And that would be it. Now, from the beginning of the game, most people playing spellcasters like to put a crossbow here and just be goofy. I don't recommend that. You will never ever hit anything with that crossbow, and even if you do, you're gonna deal like 1 damage. It's not worth it. So if you don't have anything to do, you don't have enough spell slots at the beginning, I recommend using the Demoralize skill from the Persuasion. At least you can shake in the enemies, debuff them, and allow your allies to do their stuff. You can also use the Divine Zap. It's a low amount of damage, but at least it's a damage they can't really avoid. It's far better than just missing with the crossbow. Okay. So, let me just reload my other save where we actually have this thing leveled.
Knowledge is the key.
Alright, so if you guys are curious about my feeds, I started with, testing these new ones just to use my Swift action. It kind of helps from the beginning. Ambuscading spell can also help, but honestly, enemies will never fail their reflex save on your DC spells, which is going to be Entangle for the most part. Here we have Selective Meta Magic. This is actually nice. It's difficult to avoid your own Entangle otherwise. You have ways to make your allies immune to difficult terrain later, but in the beginning of the game, this is not bad. We get our Dispel focuses. Now, Spell Focus Transmutation, I don't remember why I picked that. I think it was a prerequisite for some of Mythic feat. But I'm guessing it's the fact that I need 2 Spell Focuses to get the Spell Focus Mastery, I think, School Mastery, for another caster level for my Dispel. But again, this is not necessary. My Dispel is crazy high, and it doesn't need to be that high. It's a wasted potential. You could pick something else here. Meta Magic Heighten is always nice. On Spell Focus Abjuration, again, another prerequisite for the spell specialization of the Abjuration School, which is Greater Dispel Magic, Destructive Dispel, Meta Magic Extend, and this is bugged. This is the spell specialization. Okay. I don't think it's necessary to go through the spell book. It's really simple. This is your Entangles. This is some Bark Skins with some Sickening Entangles. You always want to have 1 Delay Poison Communal, bunch of Magic Fangs, some more Sickening Entanglement Heightened, Feather Step Mass, and Long Strider Greater, because why not? This is just a bunch of support, Freedom of Movement, Gape of Wasps. I don't even know why I have this here. And You also want the communal versions of the wards for the angels. You want to have ideally 2 of each kind on each level. So for example, 2 wards against disease communal at 4, 2 wards against impurity at 5, 2 wards against harm at 6, 2 wards against weakness at 7, and 8 is not a communal because it's this overpowered one. Fortress of the Faithful. These are all angel mythic spells. Besides that, you want a bunch of these spells and Bolt of Justice. Again, a lot of your buffs are interchangeable with other party members. For example, I also use Socio, so I am, distributing my spells as necessary, because if Socio can give me True Seeing Communal, there's no reason to have it on me, and vice versa. So this is interchangeable. I don't think it's necessary to talk about that stuff. Everybody should know it at this point. Bolt of Justice and Storm of Justice are very, very strong. Anything that is not a real of Orlesh is going to succumb to this.
I'm up for an
And you can
adventure.
empower this by raising its caster level through spell focus conjuration into spell specialization Bolt of Justice, which later you can switch to spell specialization Storm of Justice. This is going to raise its caster level. It used to be the case that these feats do not work for mythic spells, but now they do. However, quite frankly, I don't think it's necessary. The spell is powerful enough to the point where if it can kill, it will kill. And if it cannot kill, it's probably targeting something with more than 1000 hit points. So it's not gonna kill with the upgrade either. So I honestly don't think it's worth it, but this is one way to empower it if you want to. Now, another important thing is our mythic progression. Here, most people like to pick, I think it was called Instrument of Freedom. It's not bad. It can work as additional damage, it can work as a buff, but I really, really enjoy Force Reality. It is very, very good. So, one of the problems with uh, the unfair playthrough is that you generally have very hard time hitting stuff. And when stuff has mirror images, that is exceptionally annoying. So if you can coordinate your assault, your initiative, with Force Reality, you can bring down their mirror image and kill them. And killing them is better than them killing you. So I recommend Force Reality. We obviously get the Rectify state as well. This is gonna help us, remove nasty stuff. So we have to rest less. Mythic Feat is not shown here. I love the visual bugs. I honestly don't remember what I got here. But I don't think it matters. The important thing is Sword of Heaven. So this is extremely broken ability. It's one of the strongest things about being an angel. So it basically imbues the weapon with holy power. It deals additional 2d6 holy damage and a bunch of additional effects that don't really matter. I mean, they do matter, but they're kind of boring. It's just more numbers. And you have different ways to empower this with different additional bonuses. So a lot of people like to pick the Speed of Light first because it's an extra attack that stacks with haste. It is good, it's very strong, but because my martial damage dealer is a Rushale and ranged martials tend to lack in AoE, that's why I went in a little bit different route. So for example, my first upgrade was the fact that, so normally this is only for yourself. You can only buff yourself with this. But with this next upgrade, you can actually give it to allies. This is really important. That's like the most important thing for a buffer. Then the next one is the additional damage of Sword in Heaven is maximized. This is very, very good. Okay, Overwhelming Flames. Attacks made by the wielder of the imbued weapon now deal additional weapon damage to all enemies. That solves our AoE problems to some extent. And lastly, we get Speed of Light for the Ryu Warlord fight. Other than that, I got Last Stand, and here we get Mythical Beasts just to empower our pet a little bit. And here one level of Enduring Spells. You don't really need this. It's very good on the third tier, but I just think you have more important stuff to pick first. So for our Halo, I got Piercing Rays, Solar Winds, and Burning Bright. You can also get the Blind one. This is always the same. Did I miss anything? Here I got Favorite Meta Magic Extend. You can do that to lower the spell level penalty. And this is where I got Improved Initiative on this build. If I play this again, which I won't, but if I would play this again, I will pick this as first feed. It is incredibly important. The difference between being able to act and not being able to act is literally the difference between life and death. Now, some people are saying, well, improved initiative is not that important. You charge the enemies, you always first, and stuff like that. Well, not really, at least not all the time. There are many obstacles in the charge strategy. So you might not have direct line of sight on enemies. You might not have a direct path towards enemies, which is very often the case, because normally you want to charge the back line, and the front line is kind of in the way. Other times, enemies are going to be behind walls and stuff like that. Other times, you're going to be on difficult terrain and you forgot to get your feather step or something. Other times, you're going to be too close to the enemy. It's just theoretically you can charge very often, but practically you'll be surprised how many times charge is not going to be available to you. So improved initiative is something I recommend to literally anybody, every single character. Okay, so I think that pretty much covers it up, except the part where I missed to explain to you why we are Drovier. Okay, so we lose shapeshifting, which is like losing nothing, but we gain something quite unique. We are able to spread the animal aspects to our entire party, pets included, summons included. Now, the reason this is so powerful is because, first of all, this is the only class in the game that can do this. Normally, aspects are personal buffs. Like, for example, Rangers have aspect of the Hawk. Where is it? Falcon, I'm sorry. You actually have some other ones, but range. If you're a bow user, you're not going to be using this. Anyways, these are all personal buffs. You can only do them to yourself. But the Drovier gets the ability to spread them towards the entire party. And some of these are very strong. So starting from level 4, we get the option to use the communal aspect of the Raptor, which gives us plus 20 bonus movement speed, which is the equivalent of haste. You don't get extra attack, of course, but you do get the movement speed bonus of the haste. And combining that with the difficult terrain of Entangle, make kiting possible, which is what you are going to be using all the time to fight stuff on unfair early game. Okay, because and I know some people in the comments might disagree with this, but I genuinely think that body tanking, like character tanking in the game, is trash. It's just bad on unfair. Now somebody might be like, "Oh, you don't know anything. You have never seen my Sword Saint Duelist Monk Dip Crane style, you know, whatever 110 armor class character." Yes, I get that, but you're not going to be that at level 1. You're probably going to be close to that level 19. And at level 1, you are going to be dead all the time because you're going to have 28 hit points and you're going to be getting hit for like 78 damage. So I don't know how to explain this. You have to play it, you have to experience it to understand why this is so frustrating. But essentially, you want to disable enemies, stun them, knock them down, push them away with combat maneuvers, um, trip them with grease, enchant them, confuse them, slow them down with difficult terrain, kite them, just mess with them in any way possible. And if they come close to you, you use the pets to tank first while you're shifting aggro between the pets. And then, if even they die after all of that, then goes your melee marshal with last stand. And then, if they die, you send your cleric with last stand. And if they die, you reload, something like that. But usually, it doesn't reach that point. Alternatively, you could just send Seal and she could get one shotted. That's the alternative. So, yes, Scylla can be an amazing tank late game, but early game that's not a thing. Okay. I don't believe in armor class playing on unfair. At least before level 16 or so. So, aspect of the Raptor, very, very strong. One of our first power spikes, I could say. Then we have, this is not really consequential. These are for skill checks. You can use them sometimes if you need to, of course. You get the Falcon, but your Ranger is already going to have that. This one, not really good, but the Stag is very good. The Stag basically replaces Raptor, and it gives an additional dodge AC. And then we have this one, which is interesting, the aspect of the Wolf, that allows you to, let me show you. So if you spread that aspect, this is the Stag, so this is the Wolf. You are giving all of your characters the ability to try the Wolf Trip combat maneuver as a swift action. So you give the ability to trip to everybody. Yes, that's right. Pretty cool, actually. On certain builds, it can be very, very powerful. But in my case, I focus on ranged DPS and spellcasting, so normally I go with this. Now, few words about the characters, because at the beginning I was a little bit at the conundrum how to make this guide. It's a little bit goofy to make a buffer guide and just say, okay, you're a buffer, you level up your buffs and you buff your allies. That's kind of stupid, right? But at the same time, as simple as the character building might be, playing this effectively is not that simple at all, because you have to know how to empower which character to funnel power to for a specific fight, and how much power to funnel, because you don't want to overbuff them and be out of spell slots for the next fight. So, especially if you're targeting achievements, one of the harder ones is called sadistic game design, and it has a limit on how, first of all, it requires score difficulty or above, and I think it was 75 rests or something like that. You have to beat the game with lower total rests for the entire game. than 75. So we want to rest as little as possible. And being able to correctly space your buffs, because your most powerful buffs, your short duration buffs, like for example, where is this? Avenger's Blessing. This is just angel goodness. Um, Even as a 30 caster level, this is still not very long because it's just one round. This is 30 rounds. But, you know, you give divine power, which is funny. Please let me know in the comments any other ways I can give divine power to another character. I can't think of any. Holy Aura, which I mean, you can give that. Heroism, Greater, all of these are greater versions. For essentially at this point 30 levels. But you don't want to use this if you don't have to, right? And you need to know how every single companion works. So you have to know everything about the game in a way to be able to play a buffer. I know it sounds counterintuitive because buffers are normally just side characters, but yeah, not in this case. So every single companion that you see here has a very specific reason to be in the party. And let me just briefly go through them. So
A bright future awaits.
I'm gonna leave Scylla for the last. We want Ember for her hexes, for her AoE spell damage, and for her ray damage. Now, some people prefer Dayron, and they add him additional revelation of elemental type, fire for example, and they turn him into a fire blaster. You can do that, but the problem with this, in my opinion, is that Ember is just stronger in that sense. The best feature of Dayron for this build is that he needs level 20 to apply Heighten to all of his fire spells in the case of Fire Revelation, and that means you cannot multi-class him into anything. And he also gets his maximum efficiency at level 20, which is a bad timing because at level 20, damage spells are not that good unless you specifically heavily synergize on them. But I would not advise to rely on AoE spells too much on that level, 1920, unless you are a Lich. Because enemies are almost always going to be able to make the reflex save, and even if they don't, you're gonna do like 200 damage on a good day, and that's with meta magic empowerment, and they have like 1,000 plus hit points plus 1 revive. So blasting magic is very strong mid game, but it kind of falls off. Late game ray magic is where the money is at. Fortunately for us, Ember has all of that. Additionally, Ember actually needs very few hexes. She comes with Slumber, which is okay at the beginning. Vulnerability Curse is actually much better than I thought. It can remove immunities for 1 round. On her, you want Protective Lock, you want Cackle, and you want Evil Eye, and then you want Fortune. And you don't want anything else. This doesn't matter. I mean, Misfortune can be okay sometimes, but you don't need it. So you can just cut the progression here and just be Lore Master until the end. And you're not going to lose any caster levels. In my case, I also dip into Sorcerer Crossblooded because I want Draconic Bloodline Red and Elemental Bloodline Fire for this thing here, +1 damage per die rolled. This is one of the most difficult bonuses to get in the game, and you definitely need it if you are gonna be a blaster. And if you get this with Dayron, you lose his final revelation. This is just a little bit extra. And so, yeah, that's about it. standard feats, spell pen, some initiative, meta magic bolster. I was experimenting with some light armors, but you don't need that. So this is why we have Ember.
You are my favorite aide.
Nenio is absolutely mandatory, and you want Nenio for greater invisibility support, haste support, and down the line, illusion disabler and enchantment DC spellcaster. So the important thing here is a dip into Sorcerer Crossblooded, get the Fey bloodline, get the Undead bloodline so you can, make zombies go haha. The rest is pretty standard, a bunch of Lore Master levels for meta magics, because why not? The spells don't really matter because you can shuffle them. You're not a spontaneous caster. This is the most important one late game. Also heightened versions of Hideous Laughter, but Overwhelming Presence is infinitely stronger than Hideous Laughter because enemies will be flat-footed under that. So this is the role of Nenio. Then Social is our domain buffer. The important thing here is that you get domain Zealot. So I started with Animal Domain to get another companion, Community Domain to get Guarded Heart, Madness Domain to get the attack roll, saving throws, skill checks, bonuses, which go up to 10. Nobility Domain for some insight bonuses. A Mythical Beast because Beast better. Last Stand, and this was some experimentation for the melee marshals. It doesn't matter, you can pick whatever you want here. This is Rapture Restraints and Improved Initiative. I would probably pick that earlier, honestly. So as far as feats go, really standard stuff. Now, normally I pick a lunge for him so that he could, attack from safe distance, but you don't really have time to attack because you use your quick action and your standard action for domain buffs. So in very rare occasions you're going to be attacking, so none of this really matters. Meta Magic Heighten should probably go maybe here, and lunge should go here. Boon Companion is very important though. So this is the raw Socio. Rochelle, okay. So this is our martial damage dealer. We need one of them. Now, when it comes to martial damage dealers, it is always going to be the case that melee martials are going to be stronger than ranged martials. There are multiple reasons for that, starting from higher base damage of the weapon, moving to the way how power attack scales with two-handers versus how deadly aim scales, the ease of utilizing attacks of opportunity in melee versus range. It's really a lot of factors. However, despite all of that, I prefer ranged DPS because with the ranger, and it doesn't have to be a ranger, it could be fighter with the bow, it could be slayer, it could be anything like that. But with a bow user, you can immediately target a high prio target and take them out before the fight even starts. Let me give you like a very quick example. If you, let's say you're in the siege of Dresden or something, and there are a bunch of frogs, babals, shears, whatever, and behind them there's a Shadow of Otari. Okay, now if you only have melee fighters, what are you gonna do? You cannot charge the Shadow of Otari because there are babals there. And trust me, you don't want to run past babals because their attack of opportunity is going to show you the pearly gates. Okay, so you either have to fight through the entire front line, while getting obliterated by the Shadow Vatari, or you have to go around them, and you're not going to be fast enough for that, usually, or you have to take out the Shadow Vatari from range, because it's unlikely you're going to be able to charge it directly. Now, even if you can charge the Shadow Vatari, this is unfair. Chances are you're going to miss. If you miss, or even if you hit but you fail to kill, um, the little sucker is going to activate Mirror Image Quicken, which means the next round you're probably going to fail to kill it again, which means you're going to eat Phantasmal Web, and then you're going to eat Phantasmal Putrefaction, which good luck resisting that at level 7. And now your allies have Wisdom damage, they are knocked down on the ground, they're flat-footed, and now you kind of get the picture. You just die, I guess. And if you have a bow user,
I'm prepared.
you can stealth yourself, open on the Shadow Vatari, and kill it before it can act. Now, if you compare the two situations, the first situation kills your party, and the second situation wins you the fight easily. So that's the reason why I prefer ranged DPS over melee. But I cannot deny the objective reality that melees are always going to deal much more damage than range. In spite of that, I still prefer range for the higher difficulties.
Please allow me.
Now, about the build, it is honestly, you don't really have too much of a freedom. You pick the standard stuff. I think she comes with Deadly Aim if you do the Azata related quest to recruit her early in the dungeon at Dresden. So I think you can get her at around level 7. So she comes with cluster shots, you get improved critical longbow, improved initiative, and now here you have to make a choice. Critical focus is normally not something that I would recommend, but I went with it because there was no other way to empower her further, considering the recent nerf of Shattered defenses. So I just went with critical focus into staggering critical because critical focus is a prerequisite for the critical effects. Staggering critical is really good. And then I also got tiring critical and exhausting critical. The problem is if you're not a fighter, level 14 fighter, you cannot have them both at the same time, but you can switch between them. And normally staggering critical is going to be better against enemies that have very dangerous full attacks, like for example Merlits. But then against enemies like a Galu attacks with Vital Strike, so staggering a Galu does nothing, but exhausting the Galu does a lot. So there you have it. You can switch between the two depending on the situation. Okay. Oh, silly me, I forgot to talk about the items, but honestly, there are just so many videos about them already, and there really isn't too much to debate. Most of them are just, pretty logical. As you play the game, you're gonna acquire items and you equip the bigger numbers. So I'm just gonna quickly go through the more important ones, and I'm gonna leave it at that because I don't want this goofy video to be like 5 hours. So for her, you wanna aim at killing pace. You get this in Act 5, where you get the random encounter with the Skeletal Merchant. If he sells the Ranger category, you can buy this from him. It's the best bow in the game. If he doesn't, then you have to tell him that uh, ranged goods are in high demand, and the next time you meet him, he's gonna have it. That's how you get this. Before that, you use the best longbow available. I recommend, let me see if I have it here. Maybe it's equipped on. Yeah, this is the second best This is from Illusion Era, I think Flesh Markets. Oh no, it was somewhere outside of the tavern? I can't remember. But as you play the quest there, you will come across it. You'll never miss it. And this is from the Delamere quest. Honestly, it's a little bit underwhelming. There was a Longbone with the Bane effect. I think it was +1 Bane Shock Longbow, and you are going to be using that. Not because the +1. The +1 doesn't matter. You can do greater magic weapon or whatever for the enchant, but the Bane is very, very strong. So just use the Bane bow until you get either this one or this one. So this is from Nocticula. If you don't have this, pick any charisma one that you can find. I think this was from the inn in Dresden after you win the siege, if I'm not mistaken. Here we have Cloak of Astounding Prowess. I think this is from a Crusader event. Gosh, I can't remember half of these items. Okay, now this is very important. So this item, you want this item on every single playthrough. It's a little bit annoying because this comes from the Regil quest, and you're gonna piss off Regil if you accept the deal with the Shadow Demon in the prison, but you kind of have to do it because that's the only way to get this ring. And this gives you immunity to mind affecting conditions, and that type of immunity is a little bit difficult to obtain otherwise. There is a cloak, I think from the Vescovor Queen, that gives you that, but only after you score a kill and for some time. But this is just passive immunity to mind affecting. Other ways to be immune to mind affecting is be Mythic rank 9 Aeon, I think, or be a Lich, but transformed Lich. So these are the ways I can think of about getting mind affecting immunity. That's how valuable this is. And I honestly think my playthrough would not be successful without this item. It's that broken. Now, whatever I said about this, I can say about this. Bane of Spirit, easily the strongest item in the game. It converts the damage type of the selected character to force. That's it. And that's infinitely good. Braces of Slaughter. This is, I think, from a DLC. It's okay, I guess. It doesn't matter. Amulet of Quick Draw. Now, here there is an interesting combo. So if you have the Robe of False Death, you can get very nice synergy with the Seasoned Assassin Armor, because the Seasoned Assassin Armor gives you total concealment against range attacks, which is very good on Unfair, since your armor class is non-existent. So the total concealment helps against suckable snipers and such. But the downside is, if you receive a critical hit in melee, well, first of all, you're gonna be on your last stand if you get that. But you're also gonna be prone for 1 round. Well, with Robe of False Death, you're immune to critical hits. So there is that. And there is also the Crimson Banner. I think you buy this from Wojif in Act 4. I forgot for how much, 300k, 400k, something like that. And while this item is active, all critical hits made by you are automatically confirmed, but also against you. But luckily for us, we are immune to critical hits. So this thing with this thing, very cool synergy. But this is also -6 penalty to Constitution, so be careful. I recommend that combo only on range characters. This doesn't matter, honestly. It's whatever. +2 circumstance bonus. Doesn't stack with aspect of the Falcon, so whatever. Big game gloves, synergy with our quarry, and the Ronak sacrifice. This is from the storyteller craft, I think. That's about it. All right. So
Keep
important
your
items for
wits
us
about you.
are going to be the Wardmaster's Amulet, because we have a lot of wards. All the communal wards from the Angel synergize with this. Robe of the Seven Sins. That's a very strong robe. I think it was from the DLC. But again, it doesn't really matter the on a dispeller with 5 billion synergies like myself. So you would probably put this on your offensive spellcaster. But you know, it is what it is. Belt of Demonic Shadow, because why not? What is this? Spell resistance. And freedom of boots. Okay. That's what happens when you put all the good boots on your allies. Does this matter? Not really. Damn, I have garbage items. But this is good. It's the mythical craft for your mythic path on the cloak. In the case of Angel, it gives us a little bit better Sword of Heaven, which is always good. And the most important one is the Gogo of Pure Sight, which when activated, our next Dispel magic attempt will be automatic 20 roll. What is this? 6 Wisdom, more spells. This is for some caster level on my transmutation spells. You know, longer duration. This is for immunity to slashing and piercing damage. It kind of helps a little bit, but we don't want to be the target of the fire either way. Sometimes if you want to use summons, you can switch to this one. I think it's from the Azat enemy of the Arushalek quest in the Lucian era. That's it. And last but definitely not least, this is our flex slot in the party. Here you're gonna bring any companion which you're doing the story quest for. So if you're going for the Greybor story quest, you put Greybor here. You're doing the Daron story quest, you put Daron here, whatever. If you're not doing any story quest, you put Sela,
Together, we stand.
because Sela is a paladin, and paladins are either the first or the second best class in the game, rivaled by scouts. Now the reason being is, well, where do I even start with this? So Aura of Greater Courage and Greater Aura of Greater Courage is a spell, but it's only available if you already have the passive. This gives you immunity to fear. Okay, so the thing about fear is that when it matters, it's usually intimidation check instead of a DC on a will saving throw. And the worst offender of this mechanic, and the reason it's an offender is because intimidation checks can get really, really high. Whereas the DC of the spells are also high, but you can kind of boost your saving throws. However, when the mechanic is with intimidation checks, like Dreadful Presence, I think it was called, you get to experience the displeasure in the Kofir Mines against the Umbral Dragon, and basically the DC is around 80, So if you fail that, you're gonna be scared, you're gonna run around like a headless chicken, and you're gonna die. So you need some kind of immunity to fear. That is not negotiable. You absolutely must have that. Whether it's by our greater courage, whether it's by sharing a rage power for immunity to fear, whatever it is, you need immunity. Any blessings of courage and any luck and resolve, any bullshit like that doesn't matter, okay? You don't want +4 morale bonus. You want immunity because 82 or 84 DC is not doable at all. So this is the first reason. But this is also rare when you're gonna need it, okay? But when you do, it has to be there. Another reason is Bestow Grace, charisma bonus to saving throws for good creatures. We have a lot of good ones. We have Ember, we have ourselves, we have Social, and Arushale also becomes good if you do her story quest in, I guess, the canon way. So two big reasons so far. Then one of the biggest reasons, but not the biggest, is Blessed Weapon. Okay, so this spell it's just ridiculously overpowered. Okay, so this is just a general tip for you guys. When you're trying to assess the power level of a spell or ability, think about the alternative. So for example, if we have an aura that gives us heroism, yes, that's cool, but you have a lot of sources of heroism. So maybe that makes it not so cool. And then you look at something like this thing here. So Blessed Weapon aligns the weapon to good, which is whatever. You have other ways to do that. But in addition, all critical threats against evil foes automatically confirm, so every threat is a critical hit. This sentence here is insane. Now, maybe I'm misremembering something. I think this used to be evil outsiders, but I could be wrong. But now it's evil foes. Not that it really matters that much because all demons are evil outsiders anyway, but maybe I just don't remember correctly, and it was always the case that it was evil foes. The reason this thing is so busted is because of the way critical hits work in the game. So every time you roll a critical threat, okay, so every time you attack, you roll d20, right? And if the d20 is any number of the critical threats, in this case 19 or 20, you qualify for a critical hit, but that's not the critical hit yet. The game immediately makes another d20 against the active armor class of the target, and if that is a hit, then you score a critical. What this means is that if the enemy has very high armor class, basically the harder they are to hit, the harder they are to crit. And you could have very high critical threat range. This could be 15 to 20 if you have daggers. This could be 11 to 20 if you're a trickster. But if your attack rating is not high enough, or you just get unlucky on the d20 roll, you won't be able to confirm your critical hit threats. And Blessed Weapon just gives you that bonus. Now let's think about alternatives. What is another way to get critical threat confirmation? Well, you could be level 20 fighter, you get weapon mastery. You could be level 20 sword saint, and you get weapon mastery. And by the way, for those of you who want to be legend, 20 sword master, 20 fighter, the 2 weapon masters actually stack, so that's good to know. So either level 20 sword saint or fighter. What is another way? You could be Slayer Ranger, and there were gloves in the game, which I think they're on Greyboard right now. But there are gloves in the game that automatically confirm critical threats on the quarry. But the quarry is only Like the moment you get it at level 11, it's trash because it's standard action. And if you do that, you won't be able to attack at all this round. But at level 19, it becomes free action. And then it's really good. So before level 19, this is not usable. So trash, trash, trash. Amazing. That's how it works. So you could be level 19 Slayer or Ranger. Or you could be level 4 Sela and give it to everybody. Okay, so that is just insane. I don't know what they were thinking. It's just like a sleeper spell just sitting in the Paladin spellbook, and it's absolutely disgusting. This thing is insane. Now, another way to get this spell is if you are Divine Caster with the Glory Domain. But the problem with the Glory Domain is that everything else it gives you is redundant garbage. And if you're going to be playing Domain build, you really don't want to skip Community. You really don't want to skip Madness. You really don't want to skip Nobility. Most of all, you don't want to skip Domain Zealot. You can skip Animal Domain, but come on, additional Animal Companion is like an extra character, okay? So you don't want to skip any of these. Skipping Mythical Beast is not good at all. Skipping Last Stand is insane. And maybe you can pick Glory Domain here. But I mean, come on. You want to use that spell at the beginning of the game, right? So when are you going to pick this? Without Domain Zealot, Domain build is useless. You can only do one buff as a standard action. So you absolutely must have that. And if you pick Glory here, you're not gonna have pet until Mythic rank 2, then you're gonna get the pet here at Mythic rank 3. How to put this? Theoretically, you can have Glory Domain. Practically, it's not practical to have it. So being a Paladin is the only way to get this exceptionally, disgustingly broken spell, which you're gonna be using until Act 4 and maybe beyond, depending on whether or not you utilize this. I missed another way. You could also have Destruction Domain, but Destruction Domain confirms critical threats against your party members. But this is actually not so bad and unfair because enemies will confirm their critical threats against us anyway. So yeah, Destruction Domain is another way. And that's about it. So yeah.
I will help where I can.
I don't know what to say. This spell, if this spell was a level 8 spell, it would still be good. That's how disgusting this is. But it doesn't stop there, because there is also... Where is it? Where are you? Yay. Enter the best ability in the game. This video is really gonna get too long if I talk about this in detail, but basically you put this on enemy and the enemy dies. Okay? It is the strongest ability in the game, rivaling mythic abilities, maybe better than most of them as well. Because you see, early game, the problem is hit rating and damage. Mid game, the problem is hit rating, but mostly damage, and late game, the problem is primarily damage. You could have enough hit rating if you just hit consistently, but you can never have enough damage. Enemies are really, really tough in this game. Okay, they're really tough. So any source of extra damage you can get is exceptionally good. Now, what does this do? Okay, so the Paladin expects mighty evil charges, whatever, no price is too great. And as a swift action, the Paladin chooses one target with the sight to smite. If this target is evil, which, I mean, if it's not evil because it's a demon, it's gonna be evil because it's undead, and if it's not evil because it's an undead, it's gonna be evil because it's a goofy cultist. Everybody's evil here. There are like few constructs and wild beasts that are not evil, but pretty much everything else is evil. So against 99.9% of enemies, the Paladin's allies add her, the Paladin, charisma bonus to their attack rolls and add her paladin level to all damage rolls. Let that sink in. Made against the target with a smite. The smite evil attack automatically bypasses any DR the creature might possess. Interesting. Plus 20 damage. So, yeah, in addition, why not? Deflection bonus equal to her charisma bonus to AC, whatever. So, plus the paladin level to damage rolls is absolutely insane because this applies to every instance of damage, not just every hit, every instance of damage. So, for example, Nenio here could throw a magic missile, and this magic missile fires how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 missiles at level 9. And each missile deals 1d4 plus 1 points of force damage. Interesting, right? If the enemy is a marked by Mark of Justice by a level 20 Sila, this is going to be 1d4 plus 21 on each missile. Okay. So instead of hitting between 1 and 5, okay, we hit between 1 and 25 5 times. You can do the arithmetic on how many times you can get the averages if you want. You can see what is the damage increase, but it's ridiculous. So
I'm up for an adventure.
you can use Divine Zap, which normally deals 1d3 damage against target marked by Mark of Justice. It's gonna be 1d3 plus 20, and that's divine damage, and that's a cantrip.
I need
And
to
we are
get
gonna
some
have
rest.
this.
You're a good person.
Ember has this. Camellia has this.
My will
Socio
is
has
resolute.
this. Darren has this. Maybe I'm missing somebody. So anything that has a guaranteed hit or anything that hits multiple times just completely decimates, completely
A bright
destroys.
future awaits us.
Absolutely disgusting ability. And most of you know the cheese with the what was it called? Creeping Doom. So you can summon this thing, which is a swarm. Swarms don't have attack roll; they just damage everything around them on their turn with whatever is their stat block. In this case, it's 4d6 damage, which is very low, but it's gonna be plus 20 because of Mark of Justice, and also enemies are not gonna have any DR, which means that Creeping Doom is going to do guaranteed damage 4d6 plus 20. Yeah, you can have multiple of them as well. So, basically, absolutely disgusting character. I mean, they specialize in fighting evil after all. You also have stuff like Crusader's Edge, Eagle Soul. What else is good here? Holy Sword is useful. The other Grace of the Champion is cool if you can use it, but you need to be lawful good. Anything else that is good? Well, you can use this on your Arushale, on your Bane Bow in the beginning.
Together we stand.
I think that's about it. Oh yeah, the Divine Bond. I picked the horse because animals, you know, additional tank, additional damage. You can also get the sword one if you want her to be of a fighting sword, but I recommend the pet. What else did I forget to mention? utilize animal growth to your pets. And that, oh no, actually, I forgot to mention why I picked the Rochelle. So, um, Wendwalk was kind of out of the picture because we're doing good playthrough. There is a way you can keep her around, but it was very anti-thematic. Then the choice was between Lan and Arushale, but my main
Does
character is
anyone
wisdom based,
require my
Search
and
for
counsel?
the
I have
beauty with your
Socio who is
heart,
wisdom
not
based,
your eyes.
and Lan is also wisdom based, so that would overload me uh, on wisdom items, and there would be nobody to use dex items. So that's why we picked Arushale. But she is also pretty great. She has very high stats, and she comes with nice feats. Favorite enemy is decent at the beginning of the game. Improved evasion is great. But generally speaking, the ranged companions are very comparable. Lana, Rochelle, and Mendwag, I would say they are very, very close in strength. It's difficult to prove. You can argue a long time about who might excel when, but they are very good. All of them can work. So that is why we went for a Rochelle. Items for Socio don't really matter that much. He's just there to give buffs. Items for Nenio, intelligence bonuses, DC for enchantment spells, um, DC with compulsion descriptors, um, plus 2 DC for illusion, plus 2 DC for enchantment. This is DC of all spells. This is this doesn't matter. Robe of Determination, some hit points. Not that it matters, but you know, this is very strong as well. Plus DCFO enchantment scrolls, and well, this is just you know, they look cool. Obviously, get the best meta magic rods, greater persistent, greater quicken, another greater persistent. Old Grimoire goes to whoever needs the most spells from 1 to 3. In my case, it is Nenio, and that's it. Items for Emperor. So this is kind of like an experiment. That's why I picked the arcane armor training and down the line armor proficiency light, so I can boost her dex a little bit. But you don't have to do this, honestly. It's whatever. The snake skin could go to a Rochelle. But I genuinely think that this combo between these two items with Crimson Banner is very, very good. It's strong enough. So we get Broken Trickster here. This is for some bonus to attack rolls on the ray attacks. This is plus 2 DC to evocation. Ring of Pyromania. Rasmir's Ring from the DLC. I think you had to make the choice between this item and another one. I think it was a necklace, I'm not sure. But this is just, you know, extra galore. Scorching Bracers, Fiery Spell Weaver, the aspect of the Asp, again, a little bit of dex. Elemental Imbuement. Melander's Insult, Treacherous Flame, Boots of Arcane Persistence. Okay, so a very cool thing you can do with Ember is by having this robe. I think this was from the Winter Sun Cave, the Deracne boss, somewhere. I think that's the location. This is very, very strong robe. So if you want to boost the damage of your spells, the best way is meta magic, but you're gonna have meta magic anyway. And the other way is getting higher caster level, but that raises the damage up to a cap. Normally it's 20. Some spells don't have cap, but they're very rare. And the only other way is this thing called damage per die rolled, which is extremely rare. On top of my head, I can think of this item. There is another leather armor. Guess how many arcane casters use leather armor? I mean, you can do it, but it's weird. You could be a demon with the aspect of the Brimurak, or you could be a gold dragon, or you could have the sorcerer bloodline. I cannot think of any other way to get this bonus. And it's the only way you raise the damage beside meta magic. However, you do have to suffer, in this particular case, you do have to suffer the element that you want to empower. But because of our sorcerer bloodline dip that I showed you earlier, we can actually convert any damage to fire. Okay. This also changes the spell's type to a fire spell. So everything is a fire spell. So we could target ourselves with the weakest elemental spell, which is Ray of Frost, for example. Jeez. And now that we have suffered that, which is actually fire damage, yeah, it's a good idea to turn off the... There's a lot of micromanagement, it's really annoying, that's why I'm not doing it most of the time, but if you do this, you are going to proc this thing, and it's going to empower your spells. Alright, so I think that pretty much covers the build side of things. However, how you play exactly, it's difficult to explain. So I have a bunch of videos that I have uploaded for this playthrough. It's not the full playthrough, but it's I think the more important fights. I also don't know how to edit videos beside trimming them in the YouTube editor, so it's a little bit difficult for me to create videos. But I did try to do it, and the reason I think the build is decent is because and I have that captured on a video, I was able to beat the game on unfair with no full party XP sharing from the beginning, story companions only, and I also got sadistic game design achievement on unfair. Now, this game released in 2023, and according to Steam, 0.8% have beaten the game on unfair, and 0.9% have sadistic game design. However, sadistic game design can be obtained on core and above. So the amount of people who got sadistic game design on unfair are probably on the ballpark of 0.3%, 0.1%, something like that. So I got both in one playthrough. And I think any build that can do that is a good build. That being said, though, not everybody is an idiot like me who plays the game for 2,000 hours. And additionally, I wouldn't recommend this build for newer players, just because you really need to know the game in detail. Not only do you need to know how every character works, not only do you need to know perfectly how the mechanics of the rounds work, But you also need to know the encounters. You also need to know the ambushes. I just in general I don't recommend this difficulty, even if you're an experienced player, because it is frustrating. Okay, but I enjoy playing games on harder difficulties, and this was really, really long and difficult journey. But there is a decent amount of satisfaction if you can actually pull this thing off. However, if you are a newer player, I would recommend lower difficulties, maybe daring, maybe core, and not a build like that, because there are easier ways that require less work that could clear the content faster. My personal recommendation for new players would be the Magus class, because I believe that the Magus class is actually the hardest class in the game. However, if you beat the game with the Magus, you're gonna learn all the mechanics in the game. You're gonna learn how combat works. You're gonna learn how the rounds work. You're gonna learn additional stuff like spell combat, but you're also gonna learn how spellcasting works. You're gonna learn how attacks of opportunity work. You're also gonna learn how concentration checks work. You're also gonna learn how concentration checks when casting defensively work. You're gonna learn everything. If you play Magus with all the abilities of the Magus, there is no class in the game you cannot play after that. So that would be my recommendation. Some people say that Kineticist is the hardest class. I never understood that. I don't know why people believe that. Uh, Kineticist is basically know which blasts are physical, which are energy, and how the burn mechanic works, and that's the whole class. You also need to read the wild talents, and that's it. It's just a unique class, but I genuinely don't think Kineticist is hard at all. But yeah, if you're a new player and you somehow manage to watch this Blabo Fest to this point, I am sorry, but it's difficult to craft a guide for a game as complex as this one. So again, I would recommend a build like that to people who can beat the game on core, and you want that little bit of extra punch for unfair. Okay, so now the last thing I'm gonna say is going to apply to all builds and to all manners of gameplay in this particular title. So for the sake of this conversation, I'm going to define two terms. The purpose of this is to show you how the game changes as you raise the difficulty. Okay, so let's call the first set of parameters variables and the second set of parameters constants. Now, the definition of them for the context of this conversation is going to be variables are going to be stats that change in effectiveness as you raise the difficulty, and constants are going to be stats that retain their effectiveness no matter the difficulty. So, for example, if you want to rely on Scylla as a tank, you can rely on her armor class as a tank, and you play on normal difficulty. She can be your tank from level 1 to level 20, and everything is fine. However, you bump that to unfair, and Scylla charges the dredge, and the dredge laughs in her face, and she dies from one hit. That's what happens on unfair. So armor class doesn't really work that well in the beginning of the game on unfair. So that's why, even though mathematically AC is a constant integer, for the sake of this particular advice, I'm gonna call it a variable because it's very effective on normal difficulty and not so effective on unfair. However, if we consider something like difficult terrain, that is something that slows down everything that is not immune to it by 50%. And the difficulty doesn't matter. It's the same on core, it's the same on story mode, it's the same on unfair. Okay, if we look at something like Ascendant Element or anything that has to do with immunities, that is also a constant. It's not bothered by difficulty. So when you're crafting a build for the game, make sure that you double down on constants, because variables are effective on lower difficulties, constants are more effective on the higher difficulties. Now, this doesn't mean that you cannot make a build with variables for unfair, but it will probably come online after like level 10, and you also need to not just double down or triple down on that variable, you need to quadruple or pentaruple, if that's a word, on that thing. You need to extract every single synergy possible to be able to make that work. It's a lot more practical to do it with constants. And another thing that I would consider constant is target availability, which is the reason why I use ranged DPS.
The struggles never cease.
Because, there is a target here, I can immediately attack it. There are targets here, 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 and there is annoying sniper here. I can just target the sniper, okay, immediately. That's a constant, because I can do that on any difficulty, okay? So that would be my advice. And with that, I think that
Never stop learning.
I should probably end this recording, because I assume it is starting to get annoying at this point. I think I covered most of the things. If you guys are curious, let me know down in the comments if you want to know anything specific. By the way, I just noticed that I made a mistake on my pet. It's actually a razor, but I don't know why it's a razor. It has to be Daredevil. Daredevil is just better, but it is what it is. So I think I talked about the class, at least the more important things. I talked about the feats, I talked about the items, talked about the spellbook. That pretty much covers it up. So the last advice is avoid Nanio Quest.
Oh.
Thank me
Yes,
later.
what?
Unless you love to do copy-pasted puzzles 50 billion times, then you can go for it. Other than that, I think that pretty much covers it up. And thank you all for watching, and good luck with your pathfinding.